Lead generation, very simply, it is the way that you generate leads. So what are leads? Leads are the people that you think are most likely to purchase your product or service, or to reframe it, to not be selfish. They are the people who are the most likely to benefit from the product or service you're providing and then exchange value with you for that. So that's what lead generation is. The one thing people, I wouldn't say it's a misconception in lead generation necessarily, but it's more like a false expectation. Every business has a different way to get its leads, and every business has a different length of time it takes to generate said leads.
Welcome to Latinx in Power, a podcast hosted by Thaisa Fernandes.
Welcome to Latinx in Power. Today we are talking with Glenville Dixon Jr. Glenville is a digital marketer and business lead gen strategist with over 5 years of local and international experience in the UK, the US, and his home country. Glenville is passionate about creating immersive and engaging visual stories that communicate the needs of his partners in an entertaining and unique way. I'm very excited with this conversation. I think we had a preview already. We were talking about platforms and social media strategies. So I'm very excited with this conversation. Welcome, Glenville.
Thank you so much. I'm absolutely ecstatic to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your platform.
Amazing. In this episode, Glenville will discuss his various experience in digital marketing, especially in lead generation, lead gen. You'll gain insights on how to learn new skills and collaborate with other creative professionals. And first things first, what does it mean to be a Caribbean person for you? And how do you feel connected with the Caribbean community and perhaps the Latinx community as well?
How do I feel connected with the Caribbean community? Wow. Whoa. That's an interesting question. So honestly, truth be told, I don't really, how do I communicate this in a super effective way? I feel like the way that I'm able to connect with my Caribbean roots and ancestries is by understanding the differences between different people and no cultures. The country I live in currently is called Antigua and Barbuda, and people will tell you, hopefully no other Antiguan sees this, but you would consider this country to be something as a melting pot of different cultures and different people, different experiences that all come together. But the one thing that is pretty much aligned across the board is all of us are Black, all of us have African-American descent, and all of us came from nearby Caribbean regions to settle in Antigua and Barbuda to make a better life for ourselves. So my connection with Caribbean and other people is just the fact that in my home country, and also to an extent through the internet, I'm able to connect with Guyanese people, I'm able to connect with Haitians, I'm able to connect with Jamaicans, Dominicans. By the way, I'm half Jamaican, half Dominican myself, and other Dominicans. It's a really village-like way of living. Everyone knows everyone. We're all interconnected. We all saw each other grow and go through different experiences at our best, at our worst, and seeing our abilities to evolve and encourage others to evolve as well. So I feel like I'm involved as I'm continuing along with my own unique take on life and the way that I go about business.
I love that, this idea of having a village. It's a great description. The reason I love this question, it's because I get a lot of different answers. And it's interesting to also the sense that the answer might change over time. So I love this idea too. Having a village, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I've actually never thought about it before.
Incredible. And what inspired you to pursue a career in digital marketing and become a business lead generation strategist?
So, this goes into the whole backstory. So it wasn't always like this. 5 years ago, I was just a freelancer. I did graphic design and web design to assist with paying bills and things of that nature, And I always had an incredible thirst for knowledge. Like even today, my entire YouTube feed is just educational content, back and forth. Now it's more business oriented and finance oriented. But in the past, it used to be about science. It used to be about engineering. It used to be about things from thermodynamics, to how gravity really works, right? I was always absolutely enamored with the way the world worked, how people worked. I also did a lot of psychological shows. I read books, lots of psychology books and things of that nature. So I was always in love with learning. And when I was in my last year of high school, I was doing a couple of things. I was working 2 part-time jobs at my local intellectual property office, learning about trademarks and copywriting and registering businesses. And it's there I realized like, this business stuff, this is very interesting. So that's when I went online and I pirated my first business textbook and I read it cover to cover. I worked in construction as well, part-time. And I was also a part of youth show called Ethology. I started as a guest. I heard them on the radio and I was just like, I need to be on this spot. I need to be on this. So I joined them as a guest and I think it only took 3 months. I ended up being one of the best hosts for the show and also learned the tech side and back end and so on and so forth. And I also joined a business development group that was connected with ufology. And I learned a lot of super interesting things. And I met this one individual. I'm going to rep you now, Ibani. His name is Ibani Danvers. And he was the technician with me over in ufology. And what I did was he did this thing. Every time he had an amazing show. And all of our shows are available online if you like Google it. But please don't Google it. I was very young. Leave young Glenville alone and his opinion. But I saw him, witness him, every single time I had a good show. He would say, you know what we need to do? We need to do this ourselves. We need to do this for ourselves. Right? And I was like, okay, Yabani, sure. He did this 10 times in a row, right? 10 times in a row. The 10th time, we had literally the best show ever. Like I invited some of my school friends and we just took over the entire podcast. We were like doing amazingly. I was hosting mini workshops like, okay, how can we do this? How can we do that? We were so good. We didn't even need to look at the scripts anymore, right? Because we will literally talk about ufology topics and discussions like it within our friend group. So we jump onto a thing and we're looking at the topic. We're like, okay, bam, we already know how we're going to do this, right? So we had the best show ever. It was so good. It was so good that we had a producer, and every time the show would end, we would always feedback like, okay, we can do this better. We can do that better. Okay, Glenville, you talk like a bit too much. Let other people talk now. Oh God, love a chat. Okay, understood. Yabani, remember with the technician stuff. Okay, Joshua, you need to make sure that this time, this is what happened. Let me lay out the scene for you. We're on the top floor doing the show. The show ended. We all took off our headphones and the theme music came in, which was radioactive from, I think, Imagine Dragons. Welcome to the new age, to the new age. So we got up and we're walking out happy now. Like, yo, that had to be the best show ever. It's Austin and 5 other panelists, right? We go downstairs. We go into the third door on the right, which opened up into a big lunchroom. There, we had our lovely sponsors and their food just waiting for us on the table. We came in, we sat down. The producer came in behind of us as well and sat down, took his napkin, put the napkin in, made it look real nice, prepared his fork, and he started eating. He paused for a second. We haven't started eating yet, no. He paused for a second, looked up at us and said, good job, guys. That was a really good show. And then he continued eating. And we were like, what? What? Impossible. No criticism, nothing. Just, it was good. No, we were on a high. We were on a high that night. And we left that office half an hour later, happy. We left that office and Yamani said it again. We can do this ourselves. Let's do this ourselves now. We can get our own sponsors, build our own brand, build this, build that, do it ourselves. And I look at Ibani. I stopped everyone. I'm like, Ibani, that's what we're going to do. I'm going to go. I'm going to figure out how we're going to do it. And that's what we're going to do. Right? Because it was angelic. It was angelic. I loved it. So I went home that night and I spent, I counted it because I told him after I spent 6 hours researching how to go about doing a podcast. I looked into all the podcasts that currently exist. I looked into the revenue potential. I looked into the potential for ads, scalability, listeners, downloadership, viewership. I looked at the entire thing. and also demographics, like where are we in the region? How quickly is it? Like if I started a podcast in the Caribbean for it to grow with a Black audience, not many people watch and listen to podcasts. So that was a thing to consider. And the conclusion I came to was, yeah, boy, we can't do this. Not yet anyways. We can't do this yet. It takes time. We would have to raise money to do our own advertisement and outreach. And we'd have to do a lot of consistent content over time. And while we could do that, it's very hard to build an audience for it to be self-sustained as it existed. So I was like, okay, what do I need to build in order to have the resources to support this podcast? And I started looking up business models, right? I had seen dozens of business models and I'd read many business development books beforehand. So I kind of knew where to look. I was like, okay, I'm good at, I was a freelancer. So I'm good at copywriting. I can do little graphic design here and there. And how to find clients. That's an important thing. I wasn't just using Upwork and freelance at the time. By the way, I was. And I just created a Fiverr account. I was like, okay, I mean, I can find clients. I can have conversations. I can convince them to trust this guy who was like, I don't even know how old I was, 17 at the time, to take a chance on him and to develop this work really well and things of that nature. So I decided, I was like, okay, I can do this. I got to figure out what to do to make this happen, but I can do this. So I went and I had a conversation with Tibani. I'm like, okay, so we can't do the podcast yet. We'll do some episodes, but we'll just keep that on the back burner. What we really need more than anything else is to be financially stable, which means to have something that we can call our own, that we can scale beyond like regular jobs. Solution, an agency. That was the birth of my first business. My first business was an agency, it was the whole reason I called it what it was at the time, which is called TZF, or Technologically Zealous Family, is I wanted to bring other individuals that were just like me into the business and give them like a share of the company to like bring in business and do exceptional work and have all of these wild dreams and aspirations. But it's kind of really hard to find people like that. So we built it. We spent 6 months basically learning every single path, what it takes to run an agency, from operations to law to finance. I did almost 24 courses in total to properly educate myself of everything that I needed to do. And I worked on sales and getting client board, while Ibani worked on the content creation, marketing, graphic design, and things of that nature. And I just bounced our skill sets off of each other. And that right there was the foundation of TZF. That's how the business came to be.
That's incredible. You're a great storyteller. And two things that I wanted to share. I love that you had someone with you in this journey, and also someone who were like having this idea and sometimes like just like repeating themselves because they really wanted to do something with you. And I love to have those friends and sometimes be this friend. And I think it's very, very important. So maybe it's a reminder for folks who are listening to us to, I don't know, acknowledge those friends and be this friend as well. So creating things together is just like incredible. And it's also interesting because you had something that a lot of people don't get to have, which is feedback. It's very hard to get feedback. So you have that. So it's just incredible. It's very inspiring. And if you could highlight maybe two things from like this journey, your journey in digital marketing, what would you say were the main highlights?
Okay, so I'm going to go back and say that the journey itself was incredibly difficult. It was incredibly hard, incredibly painstaking, and it took a lot, right? Like I explained to Yabani when we first started this journey, like I looked at the information. This is probably the easiest business we can start with no money. However, what this requires is for us to learn an obscene amount of information and be able to communicate that information incredibly well to a very diverse amount of people, both in our home country and internationally. And I personally wanted to do it all in 6 months. So like what I did is I took my local college, university, and I looked at business administration, finance, law, and what their 4-year degrees and courses would be. And I looked up similar equivalents on YouTube and on other course sites. And then I did those courses. And then I just absorbed documentation information. So I built a curriculum so I'd somewhat be competent from all the points and angles for managing a business and going through going through that process. That's my first highlight. Being competent is something that anyone can learn in this world. I always say, this is my thing. 80% of people can learn 80% of all the skills in this world, right? But you need to be exceptional to learn the exceptional, right? Which means if you want to be an agency owner, you can do that in like a year. Like in a year of training, like put yourself in that trick. Okay. Your first 2, 3, or 4 clients probably are going to be free, right? Aren't going to be paid. I mean, you can use them. Okay, hey, let me put a flyer on the side of your window to get more tractions, things of that nature. Do strategic partnerships, just to connect with them so that they can become your advocates for other types of clients. It's the same thing that you do for any type of business. It's more than one way to market, right? So all of that train, all those experiences that you gain over time, that's education. My biggest highlight was being able to learn all of these things in the first place. Because what that does for me currently is I don't work at the agency anymore necessarily. I have a skill set now that I've been honing over the last 5 years, which means basically, okay, I can come into your business, I can speak to you, I can understand you on an individual level, I can understand your business or what your business is trying to provide to people, I can understand the markets and what the markets want and need and how to communicate it to them, and then bring all of those together in a package and then execute it on your behalf. That's what a design strategist is, right? Or a design engineer. It's taking a design and then engineering it into fruition, which leads to you as a business owner connecting your value to your target customer and them valuing you by giving you money and or recommendations, right? That's my second highlight. Being able to actually connect people with different services and values together and be a part of a greater impact, right? And something I recently learned like a week ago is interesting because everything builds over time. What I realized is in order to be, well, it depends on your goals. It gets really complicated really quickly, but I'll simplify it. If you do 10x the amount of value you provide for others, you'll get 1x back. If you can build something that provides 10x the value to someone, you'll get 1 times that back or 10% of it back, right? So if I built a business that provides, or let's just say exchanges $1 million between thousands of different customers over a period of time, I'm getting only 10% of that, right? As the owner, as the individual, that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm working in the business. It might mean I built out all of the framework for it to reach this amount of people, proceduralized it, made it in a way that it can be replicatable. And it takes 90% to maintain the fold and to keep it expanding, but 10% belongs to me as the original owner, right? It's always something of a 10x factor. It's always something of a 10x factor because no one ever wants to lose out, you realize in life. The key thing I realize in other businesses and the ability to succeed or fail is what they focus on. Even new business, even monoliths today, they switch their focus from providing 10x value to their clients to making as much profit as possible. And what they seem to forget is you can provide 10x the value to a person and also make profit. It just depends on how you perceive it. But a lot of people, they're like, okay, what that means, if I want the most profit possible, it means I must grab as much profitability from these small pool of people as possible and then move forward. What that does almost all the time is you end up taking more than your service deserves. So people are disgruntled. They don't want to continue your product or service. Maybe you don't treat them correctly, so they don't come back, right? You destroy that repertoire because they don't feel valued. And this is for any type of business ever across the world. And that goes all the way up for the monoliths like Microsoft to Google, especially Google. Like Google is a great example nowadays. They try to innovate, but they don't really see what customers really need and they kind of just do their own thing. And then after it doesn't work for a little while, they just destroy it. So now they have a reputation of starting a service they can never fulfill or complete. They've built that reputation for themselves because their focus isn't really about the customer. It's more about differentiation to make sure they don't have a die or collapse. But that focus leads them to making decisions that ends up failing because they don't value the customer first.
That's a really good point. And I love your mindset. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's this is something that I guess I've always known, but it's only recently I've been able to proceduralize it down, like put together actual evidence that like suggests, okay, it makes sense that this is what you need to do. You need to be selfless in a way that selfishly benefits yourself. If you provide to people, if you do a favor for someone, or like, okay, you do a favor for 10 people, you'll be in a position at one point in time where one of these people will be able to give you a benefit that will make all of those other 10 connections worth it, right? And if you live a life based on that mindset, and also it matters to choose the correct people. You don't want to give away your product for free for the wrong types of people that won't get you anywhere. It's not about helping people like willy-nilly. You have to be strategic, right? It's all about helping people and providing value, but you have to choose who you help, just like you choose the friends that you put into your life. We are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. If you spend your time with people that also think the same, like, hey, I want a good life for myself, but I also want to provide a better life for the people around me. If you're with 10 people that think the exact same way and they connect themselves with like 9 other people outside of your network, that's a lot of potential right there. You could have a business that does marketing and they could have a business that does entertainment and media. And you guys knock that together. You have another business that's trying to sell like electronic product that really benefits a customer. And you're like, you know what? This would provide like 10 extra value to my customer base. Let's connect. We'll do an affiliate. You get like 20% of all the affiliates. Of course, I'll do that. No problem. Right? This networking effect. Money is exchanged by people. Money is exchanged by mice and geese and like, you know, the environment and ourselves. We have to like make an agreement with another human being. They have to value what we're trying to offer, and then they have to make an exchange for that offering, right? It's all between people. People skills are incredibly important, and that's kind of the main thing I realize over time. So those are my, in one ton of words, those are my 2 most interesting, those are most interesting parts of my growth and trajectory, just the learning aspect of everything, as well as having to witness this type of change happen within people and being a part of that change for businesses and individuals.
Awesome. And what are the most common misconceptions about lead gen that you often encounter, and how do you address them? Or maybe we can step back and like give people an overview about like, what is lead generation? Can you explain to us first?
So lead generation, very simply, it is the way that you generate leads. So what are leads? Leads are the people that you think are most likely to purchase your product or service, or to reframe it, to not be selfish. They are the people who are the most likely to benefit from the product or service you're providing and then exchange value with you for that. So that's what lead generation is. The one thing people, I wouldn't say it's a misconception in lead generation necessarily, but it's more like a false expectation. Every business has a different way to get its leads, and every business has a different length of time it takes to generate said leads. Because your leads are basically, you're trying to get a hold of your target audience in as effective a way as possible, so that you can reach out to them, communicate to them, build a relationship with them of some sorts, so that they will purchase your product or service. The biggest misconception is that people just expect it to be magical. Like, okay, I'm going to pull out some Google ads and I'm going to reach all of these amazing, great people that are perfect for my service, and I'm just going to sell a lot of them. That isn't how it works at all. So that isn't how lead generation works at all. And also, you're not communicating or trying to generate email addresses, right? You're not trying to generate email addresses. You're not trying to generate social media connections. We like to statistify these kinds of things, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to connect with people. You're trying to connect with people on a mass scale and help them identify themselves with your product or service. That isn't a switch that you can just turn on and turn off as you need it. That's probably the biggest killer of businesses. They don't have consistent lead generation. As a CEO, your whole job should really be, you're the visionary. As the visionary, you're supposed to communicate and consistently lead generate and figure out who are the best people for your product and service and continue communicating that and using that vision with their feedback to make your product or service better. That should be the main job of CEO at all times, as well as managing your team and inspiring them, right? But you have to do pretty much both. Even sales agents can't be directed unless you can communicate to them, okay, this is exactly the type of people that we're looking for. And this is exactly how, bam, 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 do. However, there's some businesses, you start them, you don't even know who your target market is. You don't even know what kinds of people you're trying to get in touch with until you go and find them. But as long as you go and you find them, and you try to find them, and you take your time, you will get leads. That's an interesting thing. I just realized, as long as you go, then you try to connect with people, genuinely, you will connect with people. And through the act of connecting with people, that is a way of generating leads. What we typically call it as like a marketer or as an agency is we are streamlining the process of your ability to connect with your target audiences. So you have a conversation with us and you're like, okay, we do bam, bam, bam. Let me just invent a company real quick. Something I've never worked on before because that makes things more interesting. Okay, let's say your company and all you do is you sell LED lights. That's it. All you do, you sell LED lights. And you're trying to sell LED lights in a country that has luminescent lights and things of that nature is like really bad for you for this and this and that reason. And you're trying to sell to consumers. Okay, so your target market just off the brink of it would be people that are trying to save money in their electricity bill. They're trying to have healthier lights within their home, like relatively speaking, healthier lights. They're trying to be more safety and health conscious because LED lights don't have all the dangerous chemicals within the light bulbs if they were to break or blow or something of that nature. And you're trying to reach people that are price conscious as well. So, okay, cool. We reach out to people, we put it into stores, you identify your partners. This is something I do now, which I connect myself with other institutions that connect me with target markets. And then I use that as a form of partnership on like an affiliate level or like as a warm marketing outreach and strategy and so on and so forth. So that's typically what I do. So I would connect with your retail store. And what I will tell them is, hey, if you sell this product on my behalf, or they come through your store, they see our flyer and our stuff and they want to buy more or in bulk from us, you get a 10% payment for every single light bulb that's bought. Like so an agreement of that nature. And what happens is when people come to you, they basically build out this form and they fill the form and they say, okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is why I like it. This is why I value it. And these are my situations, so on and so forth. Now that you have this like persona of people, this is where it really gets interesting. Once you have this persona, you're able to put it into larger scale algorithms such as Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and able to really narrow in on the types of people that are really interested in this type of product or service, where they might be, what's their socioeconomic status, things of that nature, so on and so forth. And through that, you're able to do what's known as targeted ads, which is basically if you watch a screen and you're the most likely to be interested in this product, you'll see it. And having a demographic in place already that has been proven to work is the best way to go about doing ads. Most people do it by doing a broad connection of a large, massive audience, and then they try to narrow down. But that takes like a lot of revenue, and there are cheaper ways to go about doing the same thing, right? So you can niche down your audience and then really target them based on the data points you've gotten from partnerships or connections and doing reviews and having them fill out forms and stuff, going through a process, customer service.
I wanted to ask you another question. Maybe like everything you're talking is going to base to this, because I think you're giving a lot of insights for folks who want to enter the digital marketing space. I feel like this is kind of like a masterclass already, so I'm very excited about that. So which advice would you give to someone who wants to enter the digital marketing, especially in the lead gen? space, what are like the skills? What are the things they should look at first besides listening to your episode?
Well, find something regular in your everyday life and world that you think you see value in, and then try to sell other people on it. Try to get other people to buy something that you're interested in. And if they're not interested, understand why. Figure out if it's because they're the right person or the wrong person. And if so, okay, how can I reach out to more right people? And when you finish with your friends, try and figure out how you can reach out to them via social media. What kind of content can you create that will identify your product with the types of people who would be the most interested in it? Do that. Just do that. It doesn't matter what stage of life you're in. You could be in high school. Just pick up a product that you think is really interesting and will dear to you. Can you find out ways to purchase it online? Cool. Can you purchase it for them and then give it to them? Cool. Try to sell that. It's the thing you're the most familiar with. You understand it the most. Gain as much knowledge as you can and evaluate people, question them, ask them different things and information. If you do that, you'll pretty much understand what it means to be a marketer and by extension, a salesman. And I should clarify the difference between a marketer and a salesman. The reason why marketers are more well-liked as a profession than a salesman is that marketers try to understand you. Salesmen try to get you to buy something. And the line between that is incredibly thin.
Ideally, they should be working together too, right?
Exactly. They should be working together 100%. And the reason people really dislike salespeople is because there is this impression that salesmen use very sly tactics for getting things done and sold and things of that nature. But in reality, the vast majority of salespeople don't have to do that at all because they usually work in products that they believe in, right? You only see the sly tactics on salesmen that don't really care about their products and don't really care about their customers. And the truth is they end up failing anyways just due to bad reputation eventually. So I will not my head too hard about it. If you're passionate about something, product or service, just like you can be passionate about your favorite artist, right? Or passionate about a favorite movie. If someone asks you what kind of movies you like to watch and you say, oh, I really, really, really loved the movie. Oh, it was a very, very realistic portrayal of all kinds of things. It taught me about maturity. The characters and the people in there were funny. That is marketing. You are informing people. You're trying to identify what people are interested in and you're trying to understand them. Like, oh, they tell you, oh, they like Star Wars. You're like, oh, you like Star Wars? You know, be great. A great suggestion for you is if you watch this show called Star Trek. It's an amazing show, right? It fits everything that you're already interested in and it might provide you something just a little bit different that you find value in it. We're doing it all the time in everyday life. We're always marketing. We're always selling. We're always trying to get to understand someone. And then through that understanding, figure out how we can align ourselves as we progress in life. So the real difference is that to do it as a job means that that exchange is facilitated by the exchange of money. But that's really the only thing. The only thing that's stopping any one of us from being like a millionaire is finding, 10,000 people willing to give you $100?
Yes.
Or like, a million people willing to give you $1. Like if you sold a mint for like $1 or something and you can reach out to 1 million people.
Or maybe having billionaire parents. I feel this is what helps the most.
Yeah, 100%. The more people that you reach, the more influence that you have, right? So this is why influencers are so important in modern day. What they do now, they create content that allows them to either connect with a wide, broad audience or a niche specific audience. And what you realize is the highly engaged specific niche audiences get paid a lot more money than the broader audiences, right? Or the broader channels that target broad audiences. Because if you're a tech channel and I sell tech, then your audience is perfect for me. I'm going to pay you a premium, to connect with those people because I know I'm going to make my money's worth, right? I know that the value I'm going to exchange, the value they're going to give me is more than worth what I have to pay you up front to get this out there, right? That's how this calculation works. And it's not a bad thing to want to make an income because we have to pay bills, we're in a society. So there's no shame in saying, hey, it would be great if you could purchase this product and service from me and so on and so forth, because, I have bills to pay. The real question should be is, how do you find the people who are just their expectation is like, okay, of course I'm going to give you this money. Of course, it's so valuable to me. There's no reason I cannot pay you. Those are the types of people you need to identify and align yourself with and keep marketing to, keep reaching out to and understanding. That's your target client. A lot of businesses also really hit a trench, like especially if you grow in your agency, you will have to, maybe, depends on how you go about it, but you may find clients that you can no longer scale with because they're stuck in a position or they're doing things in a kind of way, or operations are the way they are, that they can't scale with your business and your increase in services. You have to be able to let go and to say no so that you can identify your next opportunity.
Yeah, that's a really good advice. And I really, really like what you said about finding something that you're really passionate about, and also having your friends and essentially doing user research with your friends if they are not the right target, finding the right targets, and also developing your marketing and sales skills. This is amazing. And I wanted to ask you about the resources that help you in your journey. You mentioned about the YouTube and also books that you read. Is there anything specific that you wanted to share with us today in terms of resources?
So the unfortunate thing is I'm incredibly bad with names. Anything, data or details or information, I remember it perfectly like no one's business, but I cannot remember the names of different things, which is really unfortunate because there are quite a bit of books that I've read that have provided some insights. And before all of this, I educated myself on many different courses on EDX and Allison and Coursera and things of that nature to get myself to the minimum required, what I thought at the time, minimum required knowledge necessary to connect these dots as I move forward on my journey and to be able to continue to expand and develop. Like, guys, you got to understand though, there's prerequisites for everything. Like, even to an extent to understand what I'm even talking about, you kind of have to already have either a certain inclination to the idea of sales, marketing. Well, I should rephrase it into better wording. You should already have an inclination in understanding people, trying to help people and facilitate an exchange, as well as a level of creativity, being able to create things and then communicate your creative works with others. And also, you have to be really okay with failing. Once you have those prerequisites, as well as a love of learning new things, just like I did, I didn't have necessarily a guide on how to find all these things. I just searched it because I knew, well, the minimum thing, which is I want to learn marketing, I want to learn business. And I was able to find it and gather the information. So I'm actually kind of against giving specific things you can read up on, even if I remember the names, because just the act of discovering and researching on your own is an incredible journey. And I understand the reason that we go to school and we go to college and education is a streamlined way to learn something that gives you a skill set that makes you valuable in a job and in a world. But if you plan to use this skill as an entrepreneur or to sell your own product and service, the first thing you need to understand right now is that there is no limit to what you can learn and what you can absorb. You just have to go out there and find it. There's nothing stopping you except your own perception. So that's my 2 cents.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm loving this conversation. You're sharing so many important things. And I love this mindset of also straight true to yourself and the things you believe, and also be strategic about what you do. And I wanted to thank you, Glenville, so much for your time. We are getting to the end of this episode. So I want to leave the last minutes for you to share anything you want to share, and also where people can find you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me onto this podcast. It's been absolutely incredible. I am sorry, but I guess the point of a podcast is for me to talk, right? So I'm happy I was able to share this wonderful information to your audience, and I hope that you guys are able to get something useful out of it. And I started personally with not a lot of resources. The only real resource I had from a very young age is my willingness to keep learning new things and being able to commit. Being able to commit is incredibly useful. Don't do something 50%, go through it 100%, fail utterly and completely, and then move on to the next thing. There's no need in holding back, because as long as you are still alive, there's still another chance for you, no matter where you are. So just do it, understand the risks. You can't, when I say 100%, I don't mean make no money for 6 months, but like put yourself in that mentality that it's okay to fail and that you'll be okay, right? You'll figure out a way to be okay because you care about yourself more than anyone else does. As long as you think in that terminology and that mindset, and the central point of it is also providing value to other people so they take care of me, because that's what happens when you work a job. You provide so much value to your boss that they make sure that you're eating and you're sleeping and you have a roof over your head. And someday you can provide for your daughter or son's college. That's literally how the world works. It's so incredibly weird because the news is so negative and there's so much negativity going around. But at the end of the day, you're providing so much value to an individual that they're willing to pay you a salary to make sure that you're afloat and that you continue to exist. Being an entrepreneur is just taking that potential for value into your own hands and deciding who you scale that to. So where to find me? I mean, my name is Glenville Dixon Jr. I am very easily accessible on Google. So as long as you remember my name, you'll always be able to get in touch with me. And yeah, pretty much. You'll always be able to get in touch with me as long as you know my name, Glenville Dixon Jr. It's like very well Googleable.
Amazing.
I succeeded in that.
Thank you. That's it for today, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. I would love to hear your thoughts about the podcast and the episodes. Please message us with any insight, any feedback you might have, and also guest suggestions. Message us in your favorite social media platform. We are in all social platforms. And if you want to write us in a review, we will love that. Feel free to write us in a review on Apple Podcasts, Audible, Amazon, or any other streaming that you like. Thank you.